So today I wanted to talk about something most people never really think about, but it's happening in your mouth every single day. It's called tooth remineralization. Basically, how your teeth naturally replace those tiny minerals they lose throughout the day, not in the sense of growing a new tooth or fixing a cavity, but at a microscopic level. Your enamel can actually reharden itself if you give it the right conditions. And I feel like this is an important topic to speak about because most people think about their teeth once there's a problem, but understanding this process helps you prevent these problems before they even start. And as a dentist, I always believed that the best dentistry is the kind where you can prevent, keeping treatment as minimal as possible and protecting what you already have. So in this video, I'll break down how this process works, what helps it and what gets in the way, and how you can support it through simple tiny habits. So let's start simple. Before we talk about how remineralization works, it helps to understand what your teeth are actually made of. So your teeth aren't solid blocks, they're layered structures. On the outside is the enamel, which is a hard, glassy shell that protects everything underneath. And beneath that, there's a layer called the dentin, which is basically full of tiny tubules that lead directly to the nerve inside the pulp. And enamel is basically around 96% mineral, made up of tightly packed crystals called hydroxyapatite, which is the same mineral that's found in bone, but in enamel, it's basically arranged even more densely, which makes it incredibly strong, but also a little brittle. So even though enamel looks solid, it's not static. So it's constantly interacting with your saliva, where the minerals are leaving and returning to the surface all the time. And every time you eat or drink, especially something acidic or sugary, the bacteria in your mouth break down that sugar and release acid. And when that happens, the pH in your mouth drops below a critical level, around 5.5, and tiny amounts of mineral begin to dissolve out of the enamel surface, and that basically is demineralization. Now, once the pH recovers, your saliva brings those minerals, mainly calcium and phosphate, back onto the surface where they can reattach. And that basically is remineralization. And the cycle happens dozens of times a day. It's a quiet tug of war between loss and repair. And which side wins depends on three things: how often the pH drops, how long it stays low, and how well your mouth can bring it back to normal. And over time, the balance decides whether your enamel gradually weakens or stays strong enough to resist decay. And here's the key part: your enamel can't manage this on its own. It relies on one thing to make the recovery possible, and that's your saliva. So, once that acid attack is over and your saliva steps in, this is where remineralization actually begins. And your saliva isn't just water, it's a mineral rich fluid. It contains calcium, phosphate, small amounts of fluoride, all of which are raw materials your enamel needs to rebuild itself. And when the pH in your mouth rises back above that critical level, those minerals start to move from your saliva back onto the outer surface of your enamel. And you can think of the enamel as like a wall made up of microscopic bricks. During an acid attack, a few of those bricks get loosened, and remineralization is the moment these same minerals slot back onto the gaps and lock the structure tight again. But this process only works when three conditions are right. There must be enough minerals available in your saliva. Your mouth needs time in a neutral pH environment to allow the enamel to take them back in. And there needs to be a surface that can accept those minerals, meaning your enamel isn't too far gone. And this is where certain elements or certain ingredients can help. Fluoride, for example, acts like a catalyst. It encourages calcium and phosphate to crystallize faster and form a tougher version of enamel called fluoroapatite, which is more resistant to acid. Hydroxyapatite, on the other hand, is the exact mineral your enamel is made up from. It provides kind of like a scaffold, giving those ions a structure to build onto. Neither of them can regrow a missing part or piece of a tooth, but they can make outer layers of the enamel stronger and more stable, so early softening doesn't progress into a cavity. And in a healthy mouth, the cycle works quietly in the background every day. When it's balanced, you don't notice anything, your enamel stays strong, your teeth don't feel sensitive, and small mineral losses are repaired before they ever turn into damage. And when that balance breaks from constant acid, dryness, frequent snacking, the repair can't keep up, and that's when early decay begins. So, remineralization isn't a treatment you can buy or a quick fix. It's your body's natural maintenance system, and everything you do, from how often you eat to the toothpaste you use, either supports it or slows it down. And so, if remineralization is your body's natural way of repairing early enamel changes, what stops it from actually working? And in most people, it's not brushing or toothpaste. It's three simple habits that quietly get in the way of that repair process every single day. And the first one is frequent snacking or constant sipping. And every time you eat or drink something containing sugar or carbohydrates, the bacteria in your mouth start producing acid. And that acid phase lasts about 20 to 40 minutes before your saliva can bring the pH back to normal. If you eat, for example, 3 meals a day, that's 3 short acid challenges. Your enamel recovers easily. But if you're grazing all day, sipping coffee slowly, smoothies, or fizzy drinks frequently, your teeth might face 6 to 8 acid attacks a day. That means your enamel never gets a proper recovery window, and remineralization simply can't catch up. So if you do enjoy these snacks, try to keep them close to meal times rather than spacing them throughout the day, and give your mouth at least 2 to 3 hours between these acid exposures to recover. And the second thing is a dry mouth or reduced saliva flow. Now, saliva is what makes remineralization possible. It brings calcium, phosphate, and bicarbonate ions back onto the enamel and neutralizes acid. And when saliva flow drops from dehydration, mouth breathing, or certain medications, that protective system slows down. So the result is a mouth that stays acidic for longer and your teeth can't reharden as easily. And you can fix this by staying hydrated, breathing through your nose instead of your mouth, and chewing sugar-free gum, especially or ideally something with xylitol to help stimulate the saliva. And if you do often wake up with a dry mouth, that's a sign that your body's repair process is being interrupted overnight. And the third thing is brushing too soon after acidic foods or drinks. So after an acid exposure, your enamel becomes slightly softened at the surface. And brushing during that time, even with a soft toothbrush, it can physically remove the weakened layer before it has a chance to reharden. So what I'd suggest is make sure you wait about 30 minutes after acidic foods or drinks, as it gives your enamel a chance to stabilize naturally. And if you do want to freshen up straight away, just rinse your mouth with water instead. And these 3 habits may sound small, but they can control whether your enamel is spending most of the day in a state of repair or in a state of loss. So we've looked at what gets in the way of remineralization. Now let's talk about what actually supports it, basically the daily actions to create the right conditions for your enamel to repair itself. And the first one is about time and environment. Now, your enamel can only remineralize itself when your mouth is neutral and minerals are available. And that means giving your teeth gaps between meals, rinsing with plain water after acidic foods or drinks, and letting saliva do its work before you brush. And I know it might sound simple, but that 30-minute recovery window after eating is where most of the natural repair actually happens. And the second thing is using the right toothpaste ingredients. Now, the two most effective and well-researched options are fluoride and hydroxyapatite. So fluoride has been studied for decades and it still remains the gold standard for preventing tooth decay. It helps minerals from your saliva reattach to the enamel surface and forming fluoroapatite, as I mentioned earlier. And it also slows down the bacteria that produce those acids in the first place. And hydroxyapatite, on the other hand, is the same mineral the enamel is made up of. And current studies suggest it performs similarly to fluoride in strengthening early non-cavitated enamel, though it doesn't have the same antibacterial effect and we don't yet have the same depth of long-term research. So the practical advice is this. If you use a fluoride toothpaste, brush for at least 2 minutes and don't rinse after that. Let a thin layer sit or a thin layer of fluoride sit on your teeth so it keeps working. And if you prefer a hydroxyapatite toothpaste, consistency here matters more than the concentration. It needs to be used daily for those minerals to build up over time. And the third way to support the remineralization is stimulating saliva naturally. So chewing sugar-free gum, ideally something with xylitol, after meals increases the saliva flow, it raises the pH and delivers minerals faster. And staying hydrated and breathing through your nose can also help maintain the flow that keeps the enamel in repair mode. And finally, your overall nutrition also plays a background role here. So getting enough calcium, phosphate, vitamin D, vitamin K2 supports how those minerals are absorbed and circulate in your body. And balanced meals, for example, things with dairy, leafy greens, healthy fats, all feed into the same process. So remineralization isn't buying another product, it's about giving your teeth time, minerals, and the right environment to do what they're designed to do. And the best dentistry here isn't about doing more, it's about protecting what you already have. And I hope you got value out of this video, and thank you for watching.